We continue this morning with Leah Long. Always enjoy our visits with Leah from the National Federation of Independent Small Businesses. She serves the Mississippi and Louisiana areas, the director in these states, and always kind to spend some time with us. A change in topic, Leah, from focusing on Israel and Iran to small businesses and what is happening economically. One of the biggest things that we're dealing with right now is President Trump, when he's not focused on the Middle East, seems to have his sights set on Jerome Powell, the chair of the Fed, and is continuing to call on him to lower interest rates. That has not happened so far. Does it need to happen?
I think that's important. Interest rates, everyone's been talking about it the last several months. While we haven't really took a huge position on that, we do know that affects everyday business, that affects, reinvesting in your business, possibly expanding your business. So that's one thing that we would like to see done in the future. And, there are a lot of things going on. And I know we've talked about it on here. Our main focus for the first quarter was definitely the 20% small business deduction for those small business owners, and anything that business owners deal with, interest rates, inflation, taxes, it does affect their bottom line. So the ideal goal, obviously, and that we're hopeful for the Trump administration, is to obviously make it easier to own and operate a small business and be able to cut a lot of the mandates that were put on in the previous administration to be able to move forward. And I know one thing that we're really focused on right now is the beneficial ownership information issue, the BOI, and it's been in the news quite a bit lately, and we actually just started targeted ads all over the country to kind of urge Congress and let our members know that this is out there and this is an issue.
Yeah, and I want us to get into that in just a minute. On the interest rate piece, though, I feel like so many people, when they hear interest rate deduction, just equate it to mortgages, which is really, there is an indirect correlation to the Fed dropping the rate and mortgage rates coming down. But in terms of business owners, this is more about access to capital, I would think. Mm-hmm. Do you find that this is a friendly lending environment for small business right now, or is it an environment that needs some work in the conversation about capital, whether it's for expansion or employee retention or inventory growth or whatever the reason for needing that capital is?
I always love to say small business owners sometimes don't have that large capital, lying around that, these big corporations do. So it's always a hard lending environment for small business owners, depending whether you're thriving or not, just because, at the end of the day, you have to have your balancing act. And sometimes it does cost more to own and operate a small business. And so, there was always room for improvement. We're always talking about interest rates. We want them lower. We want it to be easier for these small business owners to be able to have that capital and use that to continue to reinvest in their business. And, and that's the thing, that when they reinvest in their business, it also helps the economy that we live in. It helps the community that we live in. So anything to do to, make that lending environment better and make it easier is definitely going to benefit these small business owners.
You can read all about the NFIB's position on protecting small businesses and the business beneficial ownership information reporting rule on the NFIB website. Just go to the news tab and read that, because there's a lot there. Let's try and unpack that a little bit, though. This reporting rule that is set to go in place, beneficial ownership information. I know that we have gotten kind of regular updates and didn't know exactly what they meant from our accountant over the last year or so. I'm assuming that we're not the only ones. What's the issue here?
Yeah, so just kind of unpack it from the very beginning. So this rule requires corporations, LLCs, and similar entities with 20 or fewer employees and $5 million or less in gross receipts of sales to be able to report their beneficial information to FinCEN, which, I like to say that FinCEN's not a super regulated entity. So that's an issue. So, they're wanting to know exactly, their address, information, taxpayer. But the thing is, usually your Secretary of State, if you are obviously a registered business owner, you already have that. The government already has this information. So the good guys are always going to comply with everything. But, I think part of this was wanting to catch the bad guys. Well, more than likely, bad guys probably never actually filed their business in the first place. And so it's an overreach into information that the government already has. And the fact is that this information is not regulated. We don't know who has this information. So the idea right now is, if 32 million, if it's not fully repealed, which, President Trump did announce that small businesses were going to be exempt from this, but now we're trying to urge Congress to make it fully repeal the BOI law and to also do away and destroy all the information that was submitted. And I do know that there were several Mississippi business owners that did submit this because the punishment for not doing it was, basically jail time and huge penalties, which is insane as a small business owner. And so I think it's average right now, if it's not fully repealed, 32 million small businesses nationwide could once again be subjected to this unnecessary invasive mandate. And it's quite frankly, it's unconstitutional.
You mentioned FinCEN. That's the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. And
yes.
The idea is they're doing this so that they can make sure financial crimes are not happening. What's the relationship between FinCEN and the IRS?
I mean, the thing is, the IRS basically has all this information anyway. So if FinCEN wanted to ask the IRS for this information, they could have it.
So what's the point, right? I mean, you said a second ago, Secretary of State's already got the information if you're filed with the state. The IRS has the information. What's the point? Why does it need to be provided again?
It's just another government overreach, which is, honestly, quite concerning. And, the whole thing that's played into it, it was an issue in Congress, and they were kind of snuck it into a bill. And it's one of those things that I don't understand why they want to go after the good guys, because if they're already doing this information is already out there. They can look it up. You can subpoena this information, whatever it may be. It's just another overreach on these small business owners. And it's one of the things that we have got to urge Congress to fully repeal this law, because if not, you're going to be subject to this again, and that is not anything small business owners want to do. And also, small business owners more than likely had to get with their accountants, get with their attorneys, and pay those people. So not only is this stuff that they've already paid to give the IRS, they've already paid to give the government, they've got to pay again to have this information provided. And again, that costs the small business owners money that they need to use in their own business instead of doing this.
Leah Long is my guest. She's the Mississippi and Louisiana Director for the National Federation of Independent Small Businesses. The national website is NFIB.org. Is that right?
.com.
I'm sorry, .com. NFIB.com. There's a lot of information there. Leah, before I let you go, you probably get tired of me asking this question. But as you travel throughout the state of Mississippi, as you travel throughout the state of Louisiana, this part of the world that we all know so well, and you're having conversations with business owners, with trade organizations, you've kind of got the pulse of this. What are you hearing from business owners right now in terms of challenges they're facing or optimism that they may have?
In the state of Mississippi, lowering the personal income tax is a huge win. We're very excited about that. Most small businesses are pass-through entities, so they're going to benefit from that. And there was a lot of relief to the poultry industry this past session, and so I'm excited to see those bills kind of take into effect and hopefully help that industry. And they're just, they're kind of worried about the future. 20% small business deduction, that passed. It's in the big, beautiful bill. We're hoping, it gets through the Senate, and then we're hoping President Trump signs it. And right now, the BOI is a big issue. So it's one of those things that they just want to own and operate their business without the overreach of government. And if we could make that happen, it would be an American dream. Owning a small business is an American dream, but we need to allow these business owners to do that without all the government red tape and overreach. And so we're hopefully moving in the right direction with some of these changes.
You think you can tackle payroll tax next?
Hey, add it to the list. We make a list. We'll start tackling one at a time.
There you go. That's that would be certainly a good one to eliminate. But I guess we got to have money to make it all work. Leah Long, always appreciate your time. Safe travels. Know you're on the road a lot, and look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Leah Long from the National Federation of Independent Small Businesses. She's the director in Louisiana and in Mississippi. And, NFIB has been very much against this BOI structure, the Business Ownership Information Reporting Rule, and not reporting up to 2 years in federal prison, up to $10,000. She classified it as government overreach, unnecessary government overreach. Some might say, well, they've already got it. What difference does it make if you give it again? Why do they need it again? Like, what's the point? And maybe that's the whole point of this conversation. We got more coming up with you as we roll through the 8 o'clock hour. It's Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi. Sit tight.